to change what they're doing, why they're doing it, uh, at all. Like, it's just unnecessary for anybody to change their behavior around me, because my choice to not drink uh, or partake in whatever's going on is a choice that I make, and it's not even a conscious decision for me anymore. But I definitely know that when I was newer to this world of sobriety, that there may have been times or certain people or certain types of alcohol that was being served that, maybe I didn't want to be around, but I had to be at this event, a wedding or a birthday party or something, and it could be difficult to be around that environment. And even just having, like Robinson mentioned, like uh, a sobriety buddy in that situation could make it easier. But now I just find it kind of awkward when people act like, oh, well, he's here and we can't serve alcohol, or we can't all drink wine, or we aren't doing keg stands and getting wasted because he's here. Um, I would actually kind of take offense to that at this point. So, Chaz, what about you? Do you have any experience in this realm that you're aware of?
Now, typically, you know, haven't really hung out at parties, I guess, with much folks who are in recovery from drinking.
Mm.
Typically, though, if I go out for, dinner or something, whatnot, and, a member of our party doesn't, drink or something, I'll drink, and I don't like rub it in the face. I don't like get all belligerent or anything else. And, it's just like, um, I'm the one who's drinking, you're not. And I respect you as an adult who can make decisions and control themselves. In other words, I'm not going to treat you like a child,
Sure.
as if simply having this substance out, you're going to go for it. In other words, I at least have some faith in you. Now, if the person asks, if they say, look, I'm really uncomfortable with people drinking around me, I'll respect that and I won't drink. But they have to tell me that first.
Sure.
And it's the same thing like with smoking. Like if I know someone doesn't smoke, I don't smoke around people who don't smoke.
And
And that,
does that happen with that request as a prerequisite as well, or with smoking, is it something different?
well, with smoking, it's different insofar as like whether it's not that, they're an ex-smoker and they don't want to start again, or they just want to, not have secondhand smoke, really. Um,
Aha. So it is different.
it is, yeah, there is a difference. There's a two-part thing. Like if I drink near you, you're not going to get any secondhand drinking.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be pretty neat. But with cigarettes, yeah, your smoking can physically affect someone near you.
I got a
So,
secondhand buzz, man.
so yeah, it is a bit different, but that's typically it's like if a person says it, I respect that, but otherwise, I'm just gonna do what I do.
Well, uh-oh. Robinson's trying to talk.
You're muted, bar.
You're
I
muted.
think they call
There
that a
you go.
contact high.
Right, a contact high. Well, what about a contact drunk?
Ah,
That would have to be
yeah.
some really, like, strong moonshine for somebody to, like, breathe in your face and get drunk off of it. But
How's the echo, by the way?
the echo appears to be gone again.
Okay.
Figured out?
It's probably one of my phones then.
Hmm. Well, one of his many phones.
Two.
Speaking of drug dealers, um,
Two.
how many pagers do you have?
How many
So
what?
pagers, beepers.
Patrons.
People still have pagers?
Uh, doctors sometimes.
Do they just get a text message or something?
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those. It's one of those things. Why people still have printers, fax machines. Anyway, so here's something that I was thinking about though that was kind of interesting. So, okay, in terms of secondhand smoke and an ex-smoker maybe not wanting to be around other people smoking, because I'll be honest, when I used to smoke and I smoked for many years, I would much rather, if I was going to be around people smoking, also be smoking than have to like breathe in their secondhand smoke. Like there was something that was more comfortable about being around people smoking when I was also smoking than being around smokers and smelling their smoke. Um, so I get that. Also with something like, marijuana, if you're in a small confined space with somebody smoking or multiple people smoking marijuana, you could, inhale that secondhand marijuana smoke. And I think that the idea of a contact high is a very real thing, especially for somebody that maybe doesn't smoke pot or very, very rarely smoked pot, and the pot that's being smoked is strong, or maybe it's being smoked out of like a bong or something like that, where there's still, raw pot smoke in the air. I think the idea of hotboxing a car exists because then even when you're not the one in the middle of doing the smoking, you're still inhaling the smoke. So I get that. But then there's the concept of just the psychological side of things that I know for me when I've been watching, I think I mentioned this last week, that I've been watching, trying to get through the 6 seasons of The Sopranos. And there are a few episodes of The Sopranos where, some of these guys they're doing drugs. And same with the more recent couple of episodes of another TV show called Penny Dreadful on Showtime, a fantastic show, by the way, where characters are using drugs. On The Sopranos specifically, characters snorting cocaine and shooting up heroin, and on this Penny Dreadful show that takes place in the 1800s, also using uh, opium and shooting morphine into their veins. And watching that kind of brings these, psychological feelings back into my mind. And even though you're not going to get a contact high off of somebody snorting blow or taking drugs, I wonder if just because of that sort of thought process that happens, that sensation that occurs, even just watching a character on TV partake in drugs that I used to enjoy, I could see that potentially being a way that somebody who's maybe not that clean and sober for very long might get. Same with alcohol. Like, wow, you're getting drunk. I remember how that feels. I am now feeling this craving to do it. So I think it's a very real phenomenon. I think that people being around other drug users or people who are drinking could potentially put them in a bad situation. But how much of that responsibility falls on the other party goers, I think is part of the conversation. Do you think a significant portion, or is it more up to the sober person, the person in recovery, to make the decision that is best for themselves?
Honestly, it's like you're an adult. No one is trapping you there. No one's requiring you to be there. I mean, if that were the case, if that person was somehow stuck there, then it might be the person who is putting on, say, the party or something. But otherwise, no one is making them stay. If it's going to, be much of an interference, which is the more socially acceptable thing to do? Take care of oneself and remove yourself from the situation, or get all up in everyone's face and tell them all to stop drinking around you because it's affecting you that poorly.
But is that, I don't know that that's fair, because I don't know that the sober person, just to keep the conversation simple to follow, the sober person probably isn't going to ask the people at the party to stop doing what they're doing, right? They might.
That's what I mean. That's exactly what I'm
Right.
saying, is that that's not going to be, that is not the socially acceptable thing. That, to remove yourself, that is what is socially acceptable.
So what if, and just to play devil's advocate, because I
Hmm.
agree with what you're saying, if you
Hmm.
find yourself in a bad situation, feeling tempted, feeling weakened by what's going on around you, getting out of that environment is probably the best decision. However,
Hmm.
I think that kind of falls into a similar category of the drug addict or the alcoholic making the decision in the first place to not continue to drink or use these drugs that they know are having this negative effect on them. And I think we all agree that that's how ignorant people see addicts. They see them as weak, powerless individuals who make bad decisions. So,
Well, it's not necessarily that. I mean, I don't share that particular viewpoint, but I run into people who do all the time. And it's not always from a point of view of, I don't know, like what you're saying. It's more like it's far more um, paternalistic, I guess is the term, I think.
what do you mean?
In other words, it's like a, oh, for your own good type of thing. It's more belittling. It's more, I don't know, it's not like that you can't control yourself. It's more of a, I'm doing this for you for your own good type of thing. I run into it all the time. Like we'll have, events and galas and all this other crap, and if you don't serve alcohol at those things, you're not going to get sponsors. You're not going to get, the big names and high priced donors and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But because the people putting it on know they're going to be folks in recovery there, they're like, oh no, but we can't have alcohol there because we have people who didn't, who are in recovery from alcohol and everything. And it's like, dude, have some faith, you know, have some faith in these people.
Well,
Don't treat them like children.
and I think it is, patronizing
Yeah.
to, like I remember, and I think I told this story a few weeks ago, where I was out to dinner with family, and I made it a point to never try to tell my family that they shouldn't drink around me even early on because I didn't see it as a problem. That was just me. And so recently, and we're many years, half a decade into my recovery, I was out to dinner and somehow a glass of wine decided to jump off the table and into my lap and all over me and in my face and in my eyes and even in my mouth. I mean, it was an entire glass of red wine just somehow through the magic of
Magic.
hand gestures um, jumped off the table and all over me.
So
And
it wasn't that someone threw a drink in your face.
no, it wasn't. It was that the person that was drinking the glass of wine was sitting across from me, and he made a gesture with his hand that
Mhm.
hit the glass, and the glass shattered all over the place, and the wine went everywhere, and it was a huge mess, and it was at a restaurant, and it was a to me, um, I could see that this made him very uncomfortable for a minute or two. Like, it's one thing for me to be drinking in front of this person who doesn't drink anymore for very obvious reasons. It's another thing entirely for my glass of wine to end up in his face and in his lap. And I could tell there was like this little moment of panic almost that was like, oh my God, what did I just do? And to me, it was no big deal, like, at all. So when you're dealing with like a celebration type situation and you have somebody there that is in recovery, what is the right thing to do? And I know we don't like to generalize on the sober happy hour, but I think we have an opportunity to kind of talk about maybe 2 or 3 different options and get real specific. Because I think we're on the same page with not treating it like such a big effing deal. But at the same time, I think there are a couple of things that you can do or ways that you can kind of prepare that could make the situation more comfortable for everybody involved. Are you down?
I'm down. I'm just trying to think of some.
Well, that's all right. Robinson's not thinking of any right now. He's just not. That's okay. I wonder how
That's all
long
right.
we could sit here silently and just stare at him through the computer and
I'm
see if we
listening.
could. Oh, he's listening! Ah! All right. So, if you are, all right. So first it'll be from the perspective of the addict. All right. If you are going, and we'll use the 4th of July, and we'll use an alcoholic going to a 4th of July party or get together where there's going to be alcohol served. And if you are putting yourself in this situation for the first time, where this is the first kind of like big celebration that you're going to be going to where they're serving alcohol, since you've gotten sober, what are some of the things that you can do to put yourself in the best possible situation where you're not going to feel uncomfortable, the people there aren't going to feel uncomfortable, and you're not going to be required to like share with every person at the party that over and over and over again that you don't drink, or potentially sharing personal information about yourself and your recovery that you don't think is a stranger's business. What can you do to both protect yourself, prepare yourself, and still have a good time?
Go with
Stay
the friend.
home and restart your closet.
Option number 1.
Don't go at
Don't
all.
go. Just forget about all your old friends and go sit in the corner and eat worms. That's
If it's
option
your
number 1.
birthday, if it's your birthday party or the celebration revolves somehow around you and you're obligated to go,
Uh-huh.
then let everyone know before, just before the event takes place. Get a hold of them, say, "Hey, I'm not drinking."
I think
I've offered a drink to someone and they said, "I'm an alcoholic." And then I said, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry." And I just, took the drink away.
yeah.
'Cause I'm an alcoholic means I can't drink. That's
Mhm.
that's what that means. That's what I learned what that means.
I'm an alcoholic. Thanks. Right? Keep them coming. So there's a trick that I think I shared in another episode also, in kind of the same vein. Let's take out of the possibility, the realm of possibility, we'll take away the idea that you just make the decision to not participate, to not go, right? So you're going, period. You're going to be there. And you're still not 100% comfortable. Your recovery is still new. You still feel tempted from time to time by alcohol. And what can you do to make the situation for you the best that it can be? Sorry, Robinson, I muted you because I was hearing the echo again. I think there's something really easy that you can do that was shared with me a long time ago. If there's going to be alcohol, have a drink with you at all times, a non-alcoholic beverage, and put it in a tumbler. Make it a, soda water, seltzer with lime. So it looks bubbly. It's got a fancy straw in it. It's got a wedge of lime in it. And you keep it with you so that it's less likely that somebody that doesn't know you in your situation is going to offer you that drink that Robinson talked about. Because they see that you already have a full drink in your hand, so they're going to be less likely to come up to you and say, "Oh, hey, you need a refill. Here you go. Here's my vodka tonic that looks similar." And that
Now,
way,
what it puts you at the risk of is, oh, hey, let me go get you another one. They grab it out of your hand and then go off.
to my next point,
Yeah.
very important.
Backfire.
Absolutely, and it can. So it's very important that if somebody is going to get you a refill of your beverage or for the first time, it is completely okay that you give a sniff to that drink before you start drinking it. There is nothing worse than picking up a drink that's been given to you. And this is going to sound awful, but it happens that there are people who really don't understand the concept of recovery, or they're just a complete asshole with no respect, who will intentionally give you an alcoholic beverage knowing full well that you don't want to drink and try to trick you. And if you don't sniff that drink first to see if you smell alcohol, and mind you, if this is an alcoholic in recovery, especially in early recovery, you are going to smell the booze in that glass very substantially. It will be very obvious that there is alcohol in that glass, and then you don't drink it, hopefully. Because if you do, and you trust too much and you grab that drink from that asshole friend and you take a big swig, that could really be harmful to somebody, especially in early recovery, who is then has that moment of panic where they run out of the room mid freak out, wondering if they need to start their sobriety clock all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, this is the end of the world, you know? So sniff your drink. That's a good suggestion. Sniff your drink if it's been given to you by somebody else, or even if it's been given to you by the bartender and they're tending bar with 100 other people who are drinking alcohol and you asked for a soda with lime. They might have accidentally screwed the drink up or mixed it up with somebody else's drink, so give it a whiff. Smells fine. Enjoy. Keep the glass full so get a refill for yourself before it runs out. And don't be afraid to let at least a few people there know. You don't have to tell them, I'm an alcoholic, I'm in recovery, blah, blah, blah. You just let them know, hey, I don't drink. That is the go-to statement that I use now, because going into the whole explanation of why is just, it's too long an explanation. So simply put, would you like a drink? Hey, you know what? I don't drink. Thank you. Right? So keep it simple. Keep it simple. Do you have anything to add, gentlemen? Robinson, you're still muted, so if you have anything to add, please unmute.
He's talking.
I can unmute him then. I think I have the ability to do that. There we
go. I don't smoke weed, and a lot of people smoke weed around me. And when it gets handed to me, when everyone's passing the pipe around, I just simply say I don't smoke.
Yeah.
And it works. And then they don't. So there's always that one guy who's going to continuously offer it to me, either out of courtesy or out of he's too stoned to remember that I don't smoke weed.
Or peer pressure.
No, I never feel like it's peer pressure. I don't think adults really do that. If you are an adult and you're amongst adults and you have someone doing that, they're not very mature.
Who's like banging on a wall?
Friends.
I hear that too. I don't know.
But that's outside. There's all kinds of. I'm in Oakland, so it could be gunshot. It could be fireworks.
It's probably not fireworks because he's in California, but it could very well be gunshots.
So saying I don't drink or I'm sober. I think saying I'm sober means I used to drink, but I don't drink anymore, or I'm not drinking now, as opposed to saying I don't drink, which indicates that you simply are not a drinker.
Yeah. Well, and I think the two have very different connotations, too. Saying that I'm sober... Oh, and now I hear myself again. Saying I'm sober could potentially lead to a conversation that you don't feel like having. Right?
Right.
So, with that, I don't drink, or like Robinson said, I don't smoke, is a totally reasonable answer to the offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid of it. I mean, I at first I remember years ago, the idea of, even now, I'll be honest, like I work with people, and like the whole craft beer thing is obnoxiously popular right now. People going to the Bevmo and Total Wine and buying $10 single bottles of small run craft beer. It's like, that's ridiculous, but that's a thing, I guess. Whatever, it's trendy to have these guys that I work with be like, "Oh yeah, man, you should come and I got this case of this sampler case of all of these craft beers from all these breweries, and we'd love to have you to come drink them with us, and whatever." And letting them know, "Hey, that sounds great. Thanks for the offer. I don't drink, but more for you guys, right?" I've never had a bad reaction to that statement. I've definitely been asked the question from some people, "Oh, you don't drink? Why?" Uh, and you can have a couple of prepared statements. I just don't. I don't enjoy drinking. I don't drink. Or, I used to drink and I just don't drink anymore. Or, my favorite, I'm actually allergic to alcohol. Oh, really? You're allergic to alcohol? Yeah. It's really weird. Every time I drink, I break out in handcuffs. And they usually gets a good laugh. But yeah. So
I got a housemate who he when somebody offers him a beer, he just says, "Nah, I'm not much of a drinker."
Mhm.
Nobody ever questions that. He just isn't a drinker.
Now, is he sober, like in recovery?
No, not at all.
He just doesn't like to drink.
Yeah. And so that's like a nice way of saying it. It's like it doesn't raise any questions. So I'm not much of a drinker. Well, that answers that. It answers any questions that you could possibly have.
Yeah.
Why would somebody say, "Oh, why aren't you much of a drinker?" Nobody would ask that.
Yeah.
When I'm sober, they might want to know why. But if you don't drink, you don't drink.
Unless the person asking is like really drunk, then they get in your face and they smell all smelly like booze. They're like, "Not much of a drinker. What are you? A pussy?"
You do that way too well.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't even know. You don't even know.
You don't know me.
You don't. What were we talking about? I don't remember. Don't much of a drinker. Hey, everybody! This guy is much of a drinker. Nobody give him anything.
I can't imagine that happening.
Yeah, I know. But you hang out with better people than we do. Apparently. You hang out with better humans. So, but what's interesting is that kind of shit doesn't happen with like anything else. Right? Like alcohol is this weird thing where people will offer it to you and then they will sometimes question why you're not interested, but like if somebody was smoking crack in the other room and they came up to you and they're like, "Hey man, want to smoke some crack?" And you're like, I'm not much of a crack smoker." They'd be like, "All right, bro, more for me."
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to call the cops, are you? But
well, I think you're getting kind of right into the what's different about it is that, well, it's not so much about sharing, crack smoking, not so much about sharing in communal bonding time, much like drinking or smoking pot.
That's true.
And it's also not illegal.
That's true.
I mean,
it's very true.
And crack is. So it's a totally different context and a totally different setting that you're going to be in.
I agree.
uh, when you're consuming any one of those different substances.
There was a movie that I watched recently, and there was like a really rich, powerful guy. And God, what movie was this? It was a comedy, but like they come over to this rich, powerful, like kind of Bill Gates kind of guy's house, and they get there, and oh, it was I think This Is 40. Do you ever see that movie
Mm-mm.
with Paul Rudd? So for some reason they end up at this like really rich and powerful, millionaire, billionaire guy's house, and Paul Rudd's character gets there, and you can tell that the rich guy is like desperate for friends because being rich, you don't have a lot of real friends. But the guy's like out of control, and nobody knows this about him, but he like offers Paul Rudd's character to like smoke crack with him, and Paul Rudd feels like obligated to smoke crack with him or like to do cocaine with him or something. And it was really bizarre. But like those types of situations probably don't really happen. Um, but I thought it was really funny because the way that it was treated was very similar to like somebody trying to pressure you into drinking with them. Like, oh, I don't want to drink alone, man. Like, come on, just have one beer. No, man, I don't drink. It's like, oh, come on, dude, just one beer with me. You're not gonna make me drink alone. And this was just, the difference was that this was smoking crack together. Um, so we talked about kind of from the addict perspective and what you can do to kind of keep yourself above board when you're faced with a situation where there's going to be drugs or alcohol around, and you definitely know you don't want to partake. Some of the things that you can do to not put yourself in a bad situation. And I think Robinson's suggestions were great. I'm not much of a drinker, and people are probably going to leave it alone. If you are at a point where just being around alcohol is going to be too difficult for you, then I think Chaz's suggestion of really making the decision as to whether or not you should be at this event and just make the right decision. Because if you're uncomfortable sharing that you are in recovery, like if that is just a still a private thing for you, and you don't want to have to explain that to strangers or colleagues or something like that, then maybe you avoid it, and maybe you go to dinner, but you don't go to the after party. Um, or you'd be surprised the people that even I work with through some casual conversation, I've come to realize that there are people that I work with that are also in recovery. And there may be people that you work with that are also in recovery that would be happy to kind of be that, sober buddy with you at this event where the two of you can make sure that you hold each other accountable, keep each other safe, and in a good decision making state of mind. That can be helpful too. Buddy up.
Well, I mean, it's becoming, increasingly common and increasingly acceptable to be in recovery.
Right.
So really, I think that people starting out in sobriety today have a lot. They're coming up against a lot more accepting social environments,
Yeah.
than it was back in the day. Like I've, read the Big Book and the 12 by 12, and just reading the way it was back in the day, like with Bill W. and Dr. Bob. Man, I don't know how anyone back then could not drink. I mean, it was seriously everywhere, all over everything. So
Yep.
it's a lot more socially acceptable and a lot more accepted to be in recovery. And people aren't going to look at you like you're some weak-willed, addict or drunk or something. They'll look at it actually more as, okay, you're saying this, well, that means, you have some modicum of maturity, you at least have some self-control and some self-respect. So yeah, I'm going to respect that.
Well, and in addition to that, if these are people that know you and have
Yeah.
been working with you or have been, working uh, in the same field as you, and they know what it takes to be in your position, and
Hmm.
they see you, they go, "Wow, hold on a second. So all this time that you've been working with me, you've been a recovering, drug addict or alcoholic, and I was unaware of that." They might actually throw quite a bit of respect your way
That's that.
because because of the taboo that still exists, the stigma that still exists around recovery and sobriety, that some people do still think of those people as weak or less than, or the bottom feeders, the drug addict on the street begging for change. But here you are, a successful person in their same industry,
Hmm.
recovering from this, and they kind of go, "Oh wow, you've just changed my whole perspective on drug addicts and alcoholics in general." And that actually is a really cool thing. Um, and that happens more and more. And it actually puts you in a position where, let's say you're some sort of in leadership or management or something, and you have a conversation with somebody that might be struggling with an addiction or alcoholism or something, and you can actually share with them that this is something that you overcame, and they go, "Wow, I don't have to think less of myself or put myself, down, thinking that I can't accomplish this or that, because look at you." And that's been really interesting, and I think that's one of the big benefits of like the community of the 12-step programs is, when you're working on getting over this addiction with somebody, and you find out that this person is like hugely successful in their life now, or they're somebody that you respect enormously for the life that they lead or the job that they have, or the work that they do, you can actually think more of the possibility of your future in recovery because of that. So the what do you call it? The fellowship, the club that I attend, and I don't have any problem sharing this. There is, it's in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's a fairly affluent area, and there are doctors in that AA program, lawyers, business owners, CEOs of big companies, um, and a couple of famous rock stars. Um, the bass player of the band Megadeth is, and this isn't me name dropping, this is a recovery story, but um, Dave Ellefson, the bass player for Megadeth, who was very famously kicked out of Megadeth for a number of years and then asked to rejoin the band after he got sober. Uh, he attends the same AA club that I do. And I always found him a kind of a cornerstone of my recovery early on, because I write music, I'm a musician, whatever, but I looked at this as, wow, here's somebody who, even in that lifestyle, touring with a band, platinum selling, recording artist, playing on the Jimmy Kimmel show and selling out world tours can be in recovery and be successful and still write good music and still play with the band and still have a good time and be respected in the industry, and that's pretty damn cool. you know the drug addict and alcoholic is no longer the panhandler on the street. It can be somebody in recovery can be a successful person, and I think that
Yeah,
that's motivating
and
to people.
And the funny thing is also that people who are still using can be successful, and that's, kind of really scary. Like I've known plenty of people who are, fairly well off and advanced in their careers and very successful at what they do, and they still use. And
Sure.
what's scary is that they may attribute their success to their use.
Yeah.
And I mean, that to me is more of a danger than just the addiction itself, is that somehow this addiction has brought something good into your life
Mm.
that you would be, otherwise that you would lose by giving it up. I mean, that to me is kind of really, it's a really hard, sharp twist of that knife. It's something entirely different, and that happens a lot.
It's funny
Especially,
because go ahead.
I was going to say, like, even professionals, lawyers, academics, artists, musicians, um, you name it, just really any kind of creative success, a lot of people attribute it to the use of, alcohol or other drugs.
Or as a means of, they discuss their success, they discuss their daily life, as this
Hmm.
high stress environment that requires that they, unwind at the end of a crazy day or crazy week. And if it weren't for this drug or this substance, they wouldn't be able to be successful. I think those are the people that struggle enormously. Especially creative individuals who
Hmm.
attribute their creativity to, smoking this or drinking that or taking this or that. And that can spiral out of control. Then you try to take it away from that person, and they psych themselves out, and they convince themselves that now they have no future in their profession because society has taken the substance away.
Well, also, I've heard it argued and this is from talking to individuals who've been in the situation who thought this way, is that the alcohol or other drug use was it was part of an image of themselves that they had, like as an artist,
Hmm.
or as an author, meaning like if you look at Edgar Allan Poe, he drank himself to death in a gutter, and so they just have this image of themselves in their creativity as an artist, as a musician, as a writer, and part of that is being an alcoholic or being an addict or just
Sure.
using in general. So it's not that they're even attributing their success to it, they're attributing it as part of their identity of it. In other words, if I am a successful, or like, in order to be like a tortured artist or something like this,
Hmm.
you know, using drugs and drinking alcohol or something like that is necessary. It's what they do. It's what we do.
Right. Well, and I think that it's not dissimilar from sports stars, a handful of years ago. And if you wanted to be a successful baseball player, you had to take steroids, certain kinds of performance enhancing drugs. If you wanted to be in the professional wrestling career, you had to take anabolic steroids and get huge and big and ripped. And if you wanted to, uh, yeah, I think there are a lot of those
But
types of
But those types of drugs, though, are like, they are meant to enhance.
right.
They're meant to actually give some physical or, measurable enhancement to something, make things more, more effective. But alcohol, it's just, fermented whatever. It's supposed to get you drunk, not
Hmm.
make you necessarily more creative. I mean, I drink, I write, but not connected to each other in any way whatsoever.
Well, but I remember when I was playing shows often, consistently, you know, I felt like I would put on a better show if I had a few beers in me before getting on stage to perform. And whether or not that was true, it didn't matter because I had convinced myself that unwinding a little bit, chilling out a little bit with a few beers before getting on stage, it was part of the ritual too. But the way that you kind of excuse it or justify it is you 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 justify it after the fact, right? You justify it in your own mind and you say, if I don't do this, then the outcome will not be as good. Like a painter who drops acid before they paint. Well, I couldn't create this if it weren't for that drug. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, let's take a break.
Okay.
And when we come back, then we can talk about it from the other angle, from the angle of the party goer or the party thrower who knows that there will be somebody or multiple people who are sober and in recovery at their shindig or celebration, and what they can do to both not offend the people or person, but also be respectful of the people or person in recovery at their soiree, and some of the things that I think some of the misconceptions, some of the pitfalls that we end up seeing people in those situations because they make assumptions or they don't fully understand. And I thought we could spend a little time trying to talk about that. So when we come back, you are listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. We have one sleeping host. We have Chaz coming to you from Tempe, Arizona. And we're broadcasting live on radiovalencia.fm, 87.9 FM on your radio dial in the San Francisco Bay Area, and streaming to you live on YouTube. We're going to play a little song for you. We'll be back in a few minutes with the last half hour or so of the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. This is a live cut from early 2000s. Hope you enjoy it.
Something about the way you whisper when the play you call out that it never should stop. Your hand gets in my face, and with a warming taste of love, you know I'm not gonna die. You've never been this way with anyone before, believe me, girl, I'm feeling the same. Ain't there with an awkward taste. I'm loving you, the negative, girl, I can't help but the pain. Something about the way you whisper when we play, you scream at me, I never should stop. Your hands in my face, and with that warming taste of love, you know I'm not gonna die. That you've never been this way with anyone before, believe me, girl, I'm feeling the same. Your stomach makes a left, you take a panic breath, cause everything you know's about to change. Don't screw it up, Ryan. It's coming. Can't you just feel the anticipation? I can. Be still. Don't move. That crowd. Don't move. No. Be still. Don't move. That crowd. Don't move. Thanks a lot, you guys. We're on the circle. Sign up on my mail.
Welcome back to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. That was a little song, strangely enough, titled Puppy Dog Face, which I know is kind of a weird name for a song, but that's what we called it. So, screw you for judging me. I got my light turned back on, so now I'm not sitting in the dark. I saw Robinson stirring during the song. I'm wondering if it was loud and it just kind of startled him, or if he's just dreaming about Vietnamese ponies. That's also a possibility. So, before we took our musical interlude, we were talking about how tonight was the 4th of July, and there are many, countless times throughout the course of a year where human beings will have parties, celebrate, whether it's an anniversary, a birthday, or a wedding, a funeral. Saturday night, 4th of July, Halloween, Memorial Day. There are as many reasons to celebrate as there are types of alcohol at your local convenience store. And I think as a species, we enjoy getting together as people to have a good time. And in our society, it is no longer strange or taboo or socially unacceptable, to get a little disconnected, to get a little funky, to get a little. I think the word high has been hijacked by the drug using world. But back in the day, man, during Prohibition, they would refer to getting drunk as getting high. This bootleg booze will get you high. So we look for any reason to get intoxicated acceptably. And I think drinking alone or maybe just on a random Wednesday night is still not always as socially acceptable to some people, similar to this phenomenon over the last couple of decades where Halloween comes around and women decide that that is a night that they are allowed to be promiscuous or dress promiscuously, and nobody has anything negative to say about it, and they throw their inhibitions to the wind. I think events like the 4th of July or Memorial Day weekend or New Year's Eve have become those socially acceptable times where maybe stepping a little bit further out of the realm of sobriety become normal. And so we look at an event like the 4th of July, and it is no longer a have a party in the evening with some friends and drink. It's an all day long event, right? We're going to have everybody show up at the house at 11 o'clock in the morning. We're going to barbecue all day. We're going to go to the beach or hang out at the pool or go to the lake. And the whole day is completely wrapped up in drinking, partying, and socializing. And when you're going to have a get-together like this, and you're going to be serving alcohol, there is a very good chance that somebody or multiple people that you've invited will be in recovery. So how do you deal with that? How does somebody deal with it respectfully? Better yet, how does somebody deal with it at all? Because what you might think is being respectful could potentially be a little disrespectful or humiliating, or and it might be totally unintentional. So if you have a friend or a family member who will be participating in your party, and that person is in recovery, and you're planning to serve alcohol, and you really want this person to come, they're an important person to you, should you decide to just not serve alcohol, right? We're going to have this party, everybody's going to come, we're going to do a potluck, we're going to have it at my house, everything's going to be fun, but now, Steve is coming, and Steve is in recovery, and he was a really bad alcoholic for a long time, and we definitely don't want Steve drinking for numerous reasons. So I'm just not going to serve alcohol at all because I know that Steve is coming. That might sound like a good idea. That might sound like the respectful way to go, the safe way to go, the understanding decision to make. But to you, Chaz, somebody who's not an addict in recovery, how would that make you feel if you found out that somebody was completely changing their plans because of you?
Oh, it's not just about being in recovery or anything about that. It's there have been times when I've been in that situation, and let's just say that when I found out about that, I made sure that the person knew that they were to never do that again.
Ooh.
And it was, I appreciated it, and I understood why why they would have thought that way or got that impression. But when they did it behind my back and everything else, I just gently informed them that that was not entirely necessary and not a very welcome thing to do.
What if they had asked you beforehand?
If they'd come to me directly beforehand, I would have handled, before making any decisions, before making any changes, that would have been fine. But talking behind my back and making other decisions and everything else and changing it just because I was going to be there or things like that, it's just, that is not cool. That is not a good experience to have. So, yeah, it happens in many different circumstances.
Yeah. And so I guess if we were to think about it from a couple of different angles, right? Let's take drugs and alcohol and recovery out of it for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody were to be throwing a party and they knew something about you, and you were the guest of honor, right? Or you were somebody very important to the host, that they wanted to make sure that you came and that you felt comfortable. But your cat is like chasing the wall. It's really funny.
I know.
And they were to decide, oh, crap. Well, I really want Chaz to be at my party, but I know that he doesn't get along with Susan. Like they used to go out together. They were in a relationship, and Susan's going to be there with her new boyfriend, and we don't think that that would be good for Chaz. So we're going to disinvite Susan and her new boyfriend so that Chaz doesn't feel uncomfortable. That seems like a nice thing to do, right? On its face, that seems considerate, at least. At the very least, that seems like, oh, they're taking Chaz into consideration.
Well, you're like saying like if I was going to be the guest of honor or something, and I mean that's actually that's not even really for my benefit or anything. It's just more or less for the the benefit of the party. It's like, hey, let's not invite two people who absolutely hate each other together.
Sure.
It's just good social planning, but never. That's a little not as much as what I was talking about. But
and I understand. My brain processes it though.
hold on, one second. Yeah. I have to deal with this.
So, by bringing the ex-girlfriend to the party, you might know that you're putting your party at risk of there being a confrontation, or that it might make one or both people uncomfortable. And so by trying to make it comfortable for everyone, you could potentially be making it uncomfortable because it kind of is now highlighting that situation that maybe didn't need to be highlighted at all. So while I agree with you, Chaz, that the two aren't necessarily the same, I think that there's a similarity in that the host is trying to engineer the situation, and I think you hit the nail on the head. To whose benefit is the engineering happening for, right? If it's to the benefit of all of the guests at the party, like I'm not going to serve alcohol because Chaz is a raging drunk who is not in recovery, and if I serve alcohol, he's going to drink too much, he's going to take it too far, he's going to pick fights with my friends, and it's going to cause drama. That's one thing. I'm not going to invite Susan and her new boyfriend because I don't want to make it uncomfortable for Chaz. That's something different. I don't want to invite Susan and her new boyfriend because I don't want Chaz to pick a fight with the new boyfriend and it turn into a brawl at my party. Is something different again. So if somebody's in recovery and you're going to have alcohol at your event, I think it's similar to I'm going to talk to the alcoholic friend first and say, hey man, I'm really excited you're coming to my party. There is going to be alcohol served at the party. Are you okay with that? And I'll be honest with you, 99 times out of 100, I would expect that the alcoholic in recovery is going to tell you that's perfectly okay. That's totally fine with me for you to serve alcohol at your party. I won't be drinking, and I hope you know that, but I have absolutely no problem with you serving alcohol at your party. Thank you for caring enough about me to even bring it to my attention that there would be alcohol there, but I'll definitely still be there. All I need to do is make sure that I steer clear of that alcohol, but don't even worry about it. That is more than likely what's going to happen, and your alcoholic friend is going to appreciate the consideration, appreciate you having the wherewithal to let them know, the heads up, if you will, and they won't have to feel uncomfortable because it's not a surprise when they get there, like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting there to be an open bar. It's also not a surprise when they get there that, oh shit, I was kind of expecting there to be an open bar, now there's not, and I hope he didn't tell the other people who are wondering why there's no alcohol here. Oh yeah, well, because Chaz doesn't drink, and now you just feel uncomfortable. It's like, well, what the hell, man? Like, you didn't have to take everybody else's alcohol away on account of me. Like, we could have just had a conversation about it. And I think
Exactly.
talking about it is first and foremost, the most important part about it. If you're going to have somebody there who's in recovery and you're planning to serve alcohol, don't make it a surprise to them in either direction. And here's the thing too, if the person that you're talking to asks that maybe you don't serve alcohol at that party, maybe you're a good enough friend that you can ask why they feel that way. Hey, so just out of curiosity, why do you think that it would be difficult for you to be at my party if there was alcohol? And listen to them. Listen to the explanation that they give you. Because it may be a lot deeper than what you think. And because the last time that they got really drunk and it created chaos in their life, the last time this really bad situation happened was at your 4th of July party 2 years ago. And now getting put back into that exact same situation now while they are sober and in recovery just makes them really uncomfortable, and they don't want to be put in that situation again. You wouldn't know that if you don't have a conversation.
No.
I think
I'm sorry,
Kat
I'm
really
being...
wants your attention.
Yeah, I know she does.
What is that cat's name?
When I that one's Cleopatra. That's Cleo.
Cleopatra.
Yeah. Anyway, what's sorry?
Here's a question.
Yes.
What if, so almost similarly, what if somebody was coming over to your house and you found out that they were allergic to cats, and you knew that they were allergic to cats ahead of time, but you wanted them to come to your get together. So I think it's a similar type of situation. They're allergic to the cats. It's not going to kill them to be around the cats, right? But it might make them a little bit uncomfortable. You know, they might get a tickle in their nose. They might sneeze a little bit. So would your expectation be that they take some allergy medicine before they come over to your house, and or would you try your best to clean, vacuum a little bit more thoroughly than you might normally and try to get the cat dander out, keep the cats in the back room, keep the cats away from the guests? Or would you tell this person, hey, this is my house. These are my cats. You don't like the cats? Don't come. Or would you be a total asshole to the point of you would say, hey, I know you're allergic to the cats, and I'll do what I can, but when they get there, your guests are like passing the cat around to pet and tickle, and the cat's climbing all over the furniture, and your allergic guest is like, really? Like, what the hell, man? Like, I'm super allergic to this cat, and it's all over everything right now. Like, it's all over my gray bag of stuff. Chewing on it and sleeping in it.
I don't know what the hell she's doing. No, I mean, I would make an effort to clean and everything else. And if that person was coming over, I'd probably put the cats in the back room. Oh my God, did she just get into that box? Shit. Sorry.
Cats love boxes.
I think she's stuck.
Hey.
Oh, okay.
This broadcast is on the internet, and
I know.
One thing I know is that if there's one thing the internet loves,
it's
more
cats.
Cats in boxes doing silly things.
Yes. This is perfectly appropriate.
Yep. It's a welcome addition to the show.
Yes, Cleo. Anyway, back to the whole thing. I would put the cats in the back room. I'd clean as much as possible, but I think it's a little bit different than alcohol. Of course. I mean, it would be like if cats had ruined this person's life in some way, or like if they were allergic to the point of, oh my God, they'll go into the hospital because of it. I'd probably suggest we go somewhere else.
Now, what if this was somebody who had been like viciously attacked by cats?
Well,
and they're just afraid of cats.
Well, then if I put them in the back room, they won't see them.
Exactly. And I think that's. But I think more than anything, what we keep coming back to is this person coming over who is either allergic to cats or deathly afraid of cats? Are they aware that you have cats, and have you had a conversation about it? Because if the person is surprised by the fact that you have cats and they're very allergic to cats, and they show up to your house, and even if you tried to clean up as much as possible, there's still going to be some cat hair around, some cat dander that's invisible. All of a sudden they start feeling a little bit allergic. They didn't know about these cats to begin with. Do you think that they would have been more comfortable knowing ahead of time that there would be cats and potentially being able to put themselves in a better situation by taking some antihistamines or something that would have prevented them having that allergic reaction? I think we both agree the answer is yes. That would probably be the best way to try to handle it.
But it doesn't typically occur to me that often
Hmm.
to tell people, oh, by the way, I have cats. I mean, and that's, I don't know.
You're being too
I mean,
literal.
I mean, what do you mean?
Well, because we're using cats as the analogy. Cats as a metaphor to alcohol or drugs at your party.
Well, I think that I don't think it's a very effective analogy because the severity and, the way it impacts people's lives and the way it's approached in, public and talking and stuff. It's like, talking about my cats isn't nearly anywhere like talking about my, drinking habits or anything. You know,
And I
it,
agree. And
it
I and I think that you make a valid point that it's not a great analogy because also because the person in this situation, either the host of the party or the sober party goer, isn't they're not going to make a decision to become allergic to the cat when they get there or not be allergic to the cat when they get there, right?
there, there you go. It's
So,
another it's another one of those contact things, like the difference between smoking and drinking,
right,
around someone.
right.
They're You're right. They're not going to just, choose to. It's not like they're going to go run into my room, grab the cat, and rub it all over themselves.
Rub it on their face.
Exactly.
I
It's
love
not
being
like that.
allergic to cats. Ah! The throat
Something
closes up.
something like that could
Yeah,
happen. Yes.
and I agree. I guess to me, it's more just a matter of, um, to are there simple things that we can do as the hosts of a party or a get together to try to be compassionate, and I think that
Hmm.
it really does come down to having a conversation,
Well, I
giving.
mean, it can be as simple as when you send out the general invitation, putting in it that, yeah, there's going to be alcohol there. That way it's not like you're singling out any one guest or anything. You're saying to everyone, hey, there's alcohol. Um, and that way if someone that way if someone was having an objection to that or whatnot, that would give them an opportunity to talk to you about that, and
Or to
then the
not
two of
come.
you could, or to not come.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that way it wouldn't be like a shock. But if they did want to come and they wanted to have a conversation about it, uh, that's totally cool, you
Right.
know?
Well, and I think to that point, it might seem a little bit strange on the Facebook Evite to put on there, drugs and alcohol will be served,
Well,
from
at
from
least
9 p.m. to
alcohol.
midnight. Um, but even alcohol. But I think there are ways that you could broach the subject without even having to make it this sort of awkward mention. Where is this a bring your own booze type situation? Is this a beer and wine will be provided type situation? Is this an open bar type situation? Or is the whole point of the party that you're going to be having cocktails and just sort of making it a general part of the invitation itself?
Well,
Because,
that's what I was talking about. Is that,
yeah,
like, at the very bottom, it's like, alcohol will be served, whatever. But it could be, yeah, BYOB, open bar, just that one phrase or whatever in the invitation.
or as the title of the invitation, if it's, you know, uh, Chaz's Friday cocktail hour,
There you go.
everybody's going to know, okay, that means there's going to be alcohol served.
Yeah, and
But
if you
if
go to
it's
that and there's alcohol and you get upset because of that, it's like,
it's on
um,
you.
yeah.
But if the invitation was, Chaz's nephew's 6th birthday slip and slide extravaganza, then your alcoholic friend may not assume that there would be alcohol at that party
At that children's party, yeah.
because it's for 6-year-olds and it's slip and slides. So they get there and it's like, oh crap, like I'm now uncomfortable and I'm gonna leave. Or here's your nephew's gift and tell him I said hi, but I gotta go. And then and then it's like, oh, why aren't you staying? You know, I'm just I'm 30 days sober, and now you feel bad, and now it's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't even think about that. And you can just avoid all of that weirdness by, I think, if you have anyone in your life that could possibly be sensitive to alcohol being served at a party, just making them aware of it in one way or another. And it doesn't have to be an awkward conversation that you have with them personally. It could be as simple as at the bottom of the, Lucy's 6th birthday party slip and slide extravaganza, at the bottom of the invitation, it says, bring your own booze. Or,
parents,
wine.
bring your brand.
Right.
Parents.
Or adult beverages will be served.
Yes.
Like something like that, so that the adults that are coming know that there will be booze. Because, hey, let's be honest, there may be some who come to the party because there's booze being served, because they would otherwise look at your invitation for the 6-year-old birthday party and say, yeah, I won't be going to that. That does not sound fun to me. But at the bottom where it says that there's going to be a keg of, fancy beer, they're like, oh, well, hold on a second, count me in. Or it's
the other party.
Right. It's a late morning brunch, and you call it you say there'll be a mimosa bar. Now all of a sudden the alcoholics in the group know that there will be booze, because there's not always booze at breakfast. But maybe those people that are blossoming alcoholics will come to your party because there will be booze at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think it's an interesting conversation, and it may not be, it's definitely not black and white. It's definitely not, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to this. I think if you are a friend and you'd like to be a good friend, a caring, compassionate friend to somebody who's struggling with an alcohol problem, that it really is just a matter of informing and being cognizant of the fact that if this person is new to recovery, they may not want to be around alcohol. And you have to decide what's more important. And this may sound a little bit cold, but what's more important to your 4th of July party? That your newly sober friend participate, or that your guests have an opportunity to drink? Because there may be some people that are put in a position where they have to make that call. You know what? It is more important to me that all of the people that I'm inviting over have an opportunity to unwind and get drunk. And that's not going to make Stephen comfortable. So I'm going to have a conversation with Stephen and give him the opportunity to not come. And I'm going to be honest, I've been Stephen in this scenario. And there were times early on in my recovery where I would have made the decision to simply not come. And I would have been okay with that. And I would have probably felt bad for not coming unless I had the conversation with the birthday boy or the host of the party ahead of time, and they knew I wasn't coming, and they knew why I wasn't coming, that I wasn't upset about it, and I didn't feel slighted, and I didn't expect them to make accommodations for me. It's kind of like a vegetarian showing up to a party where they're serving food. The vegetarian, in most cases, most vegetarians, with the exception of the snooty, I'm so goddamn important vegetarians, they don't expect to go to somebody's barbecue and have a special dish prepared just for them. You can expect that at a restaurant. You cannot, perhaps not at a steakhouse, but at a restaurant you can expect that they'll have something that the chef can make for you that would be a vegetarian dish. In this day and age, 2015, that's an acceptable request. But if you're going to a friend's backyard barbecue, you're not going to go there and be upset that they didn't have a special vegetarian veggie burger for you. You might even bring your own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same goes for alcohol being served at a party. If I'm going to a party, and it is a party for of drinking aged people, me, the sober alcoholic in recovery, needs to assume that unless I'm being told otherwise, there's a very good possibility that unless I'm going to a party with a bunch of Mormons or Muslims, that there's probably going to be alcohol. And if you're concerned about that, then have the wherewithal to reach out to the host of the party and find out.
I mean, that's honestly the responsible thing to do. You know, it is. It's what a person who is like that, you know, Steve, who's 30 days into his sobriety. That's what you got to do, you know, and that's respectable. That's the honorable thing to do, is to take that responsibility and ownership and understand that you're going to have to get along in a world with booze.
Yes.
You know, and you're going to have to go forward in it. If you're going to want to function with folks, you're going to have to realize that, yeah, the world does not revolve around your sobriety.
Which is also why I think that it can be very harmful in a recovery program where you have these militants that tell you you can't be around alcohol, you cannot have chicken tequila fettuccine for dinner because there's tequila in it, and you can't have a Kathy's rum cake because there's rum in it, and you can't use mouthwash with alcohol in it. Like, those types of things put you into this mindset that, like, alcohol in general is the devil for you, and that you have no self-control. You don't have the ability to make good decisions. And I completely disagree. I think somebody who has solid recovery should be able to enjoy a party with friends where there's alcohol being served, should be able to eat a plate of delicious and scrumptious chicken tequila fettuccine without going on a 3-week bender afterwards. Let's remember, the alcohol gets cooked out of most foods when they use alcohol.
And if if using mouthwash causes you to have to set your clock back all the way again, there is something serious. I mean, seriously wrong.
Yeah, with you and your sobriety.
Exactly.
So you've been listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast on RadioValencia.fm, on the radio dial at 87.9 FM in the Bay Area of San Francisco, and all around the world, on the YouTubes, on the Facebooks, on the Twitters. You can email us, soberhappyhour@gmail.com. We love to get your emails. We love to respond to your comments on Facebook and Twitter. Subscribe in iTunes to the Sober Happy Hour. Just search Sober Happy Hour. Subscribe, leave a comment, leave a rating. We'd love to hear about it. Robinson fell asleep. I hope he's dreaming soundly, sleeping loverly, and thinking about
Vietnamese ponies.
Vietnamese ponies. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. This has been the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. Happy 4th of July, and we will see you next Saturday. And for those of you considering getting sober, I highly recommend it. Have a good night, y'all.
Bye.